When I think of the word confidence, one man springs to mind.
A man that proclaimed he was the greatest, and yes, he was the only man that I know who can float like a butterfly and sting like a bee, Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali was a three-time world heavyweight champion who some argue to be the greatest athlete ever to grace the planet. The shuffling feet, the iconic interviews, and sticking to his beliefs when it cost him 3 years of his prime. This was a man who oozed confidence. Or did he? Despite all the showmanship and dominance in the ring, Muhammad Ali was by no means the living embodiment of confidence that his exterior image displayed. In fact, he struggled with self-doubt and insecurity throughout much of his career. In a 1979 interview with Sports Illustrated, Ali revealed that he often felt scared and nervous before fights, and struggled with feelings of inadequacy. He said, "I'm scared every time I go into the ring. I'm scared that I might get hurt. I'm scared that I might not win, but I go out there anyway." For me, as someone who's currently experiencing a lack of confidence, I find it reassuring that this icon of confidence was not always as self-assured as they appeared on the outside. And if you cast the net wider, you find countless examples of super successful people experiencing long periods of self-doubt. Despite his godlike status in the world of tech, the genius Steve Jobs once described that the responsibility of running Apple made him pretty scared. And before she became a billionaire author, J.K. Rowling thought of herself as the biggest failure she knew. Dips in confidence are part of life, and there's often a temptation to bury that or avoid it when we are experiencing this. Just jump back on the fake it till you make it bandwagon. You end up fooling yourself and others that everything is going swimmingly when actually you haven't got your shit together. But that often only ends up making things worse. There's only so long that you can wear the mask before it slips off, and it really exposes how inadequate you actually feel. So what should you do when you're feeling like this? Well, you've got to actually take the time to understand confidence a bit better. Really understand what your definition of it is, and also consider why is it something that you're missing currently. As someone who typically makes videos on this channel about performing your absolute best, this is a awkward and weird video to make because I'm actually far from my best at the minute. But I want to tell you why I'm currently suffering from a lack of confidence, because I think it might be able to help you understand your own issues with confidence more and also find some ways to resolve them. So for most of my life, I've always been fairly confident. When I was a kid, I always wanted and would get the lead part in the school play, and I was captain of my football team. If I set my mind to something, I would usually end up achieving it. And that's a key part of my definition for confidence. What I really think it is having a clear goal or objective, but then also the belief in your abilities to achieve that, and also the necessary dedication to achieve it. And this equation for confidence often worked for me in the past because I always had clear, meaningful goals. This allowed me to do really well in the education system, and I managed to get into Cambridge University, even though I was the first person in my family to even go to university, full stop. It allowed me to quit my job and become self-employed at the age of 23. And it allowed me to buy my own apartment without financial contribution from my parents or receiving any inheritance. And these are all things I'm super grateful to have achieved, but right now I don't have the next big overarching goal to work towards. And if you're like me, you always need something big to work towards. You can't just sit or coast or just go through the motions. And if you don't have a sense of direction, that is what really dampens your confidence. Or sometimes you might have that direction, but you don't have the necessary abilities or the drive and dedication to get there. But to be confident, you need all three. You need the goal, you need the abilities, and you need that dedication. And right now, I'm really missing that clear goal. I'm really trying to work out, what do I want to do next with my professional life? Since September, I've been doing an internship in tech because I've always been curious about that space. And it's been a great learning opportunity, don't get me wrong. But the possible pathway ahead in this space is not something I'm 100% dedicated to yet, nor is there a clear, desirable goal associated to it. And it's also not even a guaranteed pathway because I'm only contracted for a couple of months. And I've job searched for other things, but to be honest, I've not found anything that inspires me yet. Again, if you're like me, you not only need something to work towards, but it has to be something meaningful to you. I'm not someone who can just work in any job or company where I'm not actually passionate or enthusiastic about it. And that's just me. I know a lot of people who are good at their job, but it's not the most important thing in their lives. They're happy to just punch in and punch out, do a fairly decent job, but they're not super fussed by it. They're not super intrigued by it, super engaged by it. And fair play to them, but I'm just not like that. I can't just do something where I'm just going through the motions and just accepting a monthly paycheck. So I'm quite unconfident at the minute because I just feel a bit aimless, and that's making me feel a bit inadequate. And I'm sure you might feel the same if you see a lot of your peers doing what they want to do and they're charging down that pathway, absolutely smashing it, or they're just plodding along and they're content with doing so. Both of those situations make people happy. Just depends on the person. But if you're doing neither of those, you're just going to feel inadequate. But I heard Jordan Peterson once say something along the lines of, inadequacy is a pathway to travel down. And what those feelings of inadequacy tell you is that something needs to change. You need to either improve your skills or carve out a clear goal for yourself. You can't just wallow in those feelings because that's the easy thing, but it's also the dangerous thing, because wallowing in those feelings can very easily become a never-ending spiral, and you get trapped in a hole that is very difficult to end up getting out of. So you actually have to feel these negative feelings of inadequacy and a lack of confidence as fuel to change things. If you manage to convince yourself that you actually have a problem, then that opens the door to actually resolving those problems. And for a few months, I hadn't admitted this to myself. I felt those feelings of a lack of confidence and inadequacy, but I would bury them by distraction through watching too much TV, playing video games, scrolling on my phone. And now it's got to a point where I have to confront those feelings head on. And that's the first step to regaining your confidence, actually accepting and confronting the fact that you are not confident. And that's tough. Admitting you have any form of weakness or insecurity is just naturally a tough thing to do, especially with the pressure more than ever today to be the best version of yourself, be flawless, and be headstrong in the face of challenge. But if you do fully accept this reality of lacking confidence, then it actually lets go a lot of the shame that comes with that. Finally, being honest with yourself just lifts a massive weight off your shoulders. You're no longer having to wear that mask that you've been constantly hiding behind for so long. Don't get me wrong, you're not going to feel amazing because you're unconfident, but it's at least the first pivotal step that you need to take. And after you've reached this place of acceptance, that's when the real work starts though. That's when in some ways it's actually harder, because you've actually got to take action to do something about it. Because as we said before, just wallowing in that state of inadequacy is the easy option. You can really spiral into a really dark place where it becomes near on impossible to get out of it. But acceptance with action, that's the fuel that moves you towards that state of confidence again. And one of the best ways to do this is think through and answer the following 3 questions. And for each of these, the right answers won't necessarily come to you instantly. They're ones that you have to ask yourself every day for at least a couple of weeks, maybe even a month. And the first question is, why am I feeling unconfident? For me, as said, it's about this sense of feeling directionless and aimless with regards to my next big professional move. I've lost confidence because I'm really uncertain about what I want my life to look like and what I want to be spending the bulk of my waking hours doing. And the decision and pathway I end up crafting for myself is a pivotal one, because I'm coming to the end of my 20s. I'm done with those years of experimentation. This next big decision is going to be a really key one, because it's going to come with so many other responsibilities and obligations as I get older now. And then question number 2 is, how am I going to change this? And the answer for this will vary person to person. Your response is going to be completely different to mine. And for me, I'm still working on this, but one of the key things I'm doing is spending more time facing up to these feelings, accepting these and reviewing them and reflecting on them through regular journaling and talking to other people more about it. Because the clearer your understanding of the situation, then the pathways out of it will naturally emerge. Doing this kind of personal inner work is something I've neglected for a number of years, because I've primarily been spending a lot of my time helping others get what they want, achieve what they want, and find out what they want to do. And so for this, one of the best things you can do is just actually be a little bit selfish, because we live in a society where there's a huge emphasis on self-care, but I think there should be more of an emphasis on self-growth. Sitting down a couple of times a week and really self-indulging, asking yourself, where am I now? Where do I want to go? And plan out how to get there. Because at the end of the day, no one is saving you apart from yourself. You have to take that personal responsibility to make the change. And then the last question is what? What is my next practical step to make that progress? And with that, a practical step is just that. It's just one step towards improving your confidence, something that takes a number of weeks and months. And the practical steps you take will change day to day. It might be watching a video like this, then it might be asking someone for specific help or advice, then it might be actually spending time working on a skill that you need to develop in order to get to where you want to go. And this is arguably the most important thing, because if all you do is think and journal, then this can actually just make things worse if you don't take action. Because essentially what you're doing is mapping out a pathway, letting yourself see it, but then not letting yourself embark upon it. You need to take those daily steps towards confidence. Otherwise, you're just not going to get there. So think deeply to the answers of these questions. And as said, these will change over time. You're not going to get full clarity on day one. You have to stick to this for a number of weeks until you get that clarity. And if you do that, then you'll begin to gain whatever you're missing in that confidence equation, whether it's the actual goal, the abilities, or the dedication necessary. And just remember, it's 100% completely normal to feel this way sometimes. The top performers or most successful people in the world have all experienced and gone through some of these phases themselves. And just like them, you'll also get through them too.